After we have read through BWJ this week on the topics of accountability, we've covered what, when, who, why. And you may have thought that I'm going to cover how, but actually I'm not going to cover how because there is no perfect answer on how. But I'm going to just sum it up in a sense. We're going to learn accountability from a king. Who is this king? The king is the author of the Psalms that was sung in the song just now, which is King David. And I found this cartoon quite interesting when I found it. It seems like the word accountability has become a dirty word nowadays, because when you talk about accountability, everyone is treating it, not in a very serious way. They thought that you're talking something which is very holy and spiritual that you should avoid. This word accountability. Before I start, I just want to share some very simple experience. The first experience I remember about 10 years ago when I was on a mission trip in one foreign countries, and I was teaching the topics of on the stewardship. And I use an example of stewardship, meaning that when somebody leaves behind a motorbike to you, and you are more or less like a guardian, and you need to watch over this motorbike, make sure it is well maintained. And that is what I call accountability. And lo and behold, no matter how I try to explain, somehow the meaning just couldn't get through in that culture. So that is the first, in a sense, experience that I had when I tried to explain the meaning of accountability to a foreign culture. Now another experience is just last week when my youngest son, he takes back some change from school because he need to pay something like 90 ringgit, and we gave him 100 ringgit. And of course, the remainder 10 ringgit he is supposed to return to us. But he didn't do that, and he spent it on food. So when we try to explain to him what accountability is, and it just didn't get through to him, because to him that is money, spare money. Why can't I just spend the money? So in a way, we have to teach him from the very beginning why something that is not yours, you shouldn't take it, and you are accountable to your parent. Okay, so a simple, I think, lessons like this, it in a sense is showing us how, if we do not start somewhere, this is where accountability can go wrong. Now I'm going to share with one live example. Those of you in year 2001, you may remember this story. It is the largest corporate bankruptcy in US history in 2001. When this company, Enron, it used to be the 7th biggest corporate in US. When it went down, they have 70 billion in assets, and they went bankrupt. And what happened? Or what caused it? Because they were cooking out their books. In a way, they are fooling the regulators with fake accounting practices. And they were hiding their mountains of debt from their investors and their creditors. And all their employees, they plow back their pension fund into buying the company shares. And overnight, all the employees not just lost their job, they lost everything that they have. This is the implications of Enron. And not just Enron, their accounting firm, Arthur Anderson, some of you may still remember them, and they were forced to, in a way, to break up, because they were being penalized for colluding with this company, for shredding and destroying. Okay, and the outcome of this is there is new regulations, there's new act, and specifically it is to increase the accountability of firms to remain unbiased, meaning that to come clean. I want to bring out this Enron issue because I was still working in a company at that point of time, and every month Okay, because of this, we need to comply to the regulation. Because of this enron actually today, if you talk to all the banking industries, everybody it is still talking about the fallout. Because of this, there are good practices now put in place. So this is a very good example when accountability failed. When I look at the word accountability, because last night we had DG discussions, and there were all kinds of answers. Some will say, well, you are answerable to somebody or you are responsible. Some say that accountability is good. It acts like a gatekeeper, rules and regulations. And surprisingly, today's reading, accountability could be a burden to some people if you don't put Christ above all things. And some comments say that accountability could be like a carrot and stick. If you don't do this, you get that. Okay. And when I want to search for the word, sometimes when for people like us who are not English major, we try to find the meaning of the word from another language. And lo and behold, when I try to search for the word of accountability in Bahasa Malaysia, and guess what? The Bahasa Malaysia word is accountability. So I didn't get anywhere from that. So the next thing is I switch to Google Translate to find the word in Mandarin. Now, Mandarin is quite interesting. It consists of 3 words. The first word, it means questions or query. The second word means your response, your responsibility. Okay, the third word is basically a system. So when we talk about the word accountability, this one I have to search it from the Mandarin. They have some MBA courses. It is basically a system or a person or an act responsible for the derelictions of duty or negligence. So in a sense, the Mandarin version maybe give us some good idea. Accountability is when you have been questioned, when there is queried coming in, you are responsible. So for us as Christians, I believe it is very, very, in a sense, unique and relevant. One day, when God questions us, are we responsible for the answer, for the actions? Yeah. And from our DG, last night we discussed about accountability. It is to a non-believers is basically you are accountable to your superior or your organizations. And for Christians is basically you are responsible or accountable to God, because it is stated in Romans 14:12. So then each of us will give an account of self to God. And our DG also talk about, mostly in organization, there's a matrix on do's and don'ts, and the responsibility actually it is for everybody so that they can achieve compliance. And accountability is also a matter you owning up or you let somebody to find out your mistakes. Okay, it's better you own up rather than being found out later by the regulators. Or it is about negligence versus intentional. So there's a lot of, like I say, issues when we talk about accountability, when we want to put into practice in real life. And the conclusion is from our DG is actually accountability is applicable. Okay, of all the followings, we are accountable to our family members. In our workplace, we are accountable to one another in our DG, in our church, in our own ministry area, and to our country. Okay, and I believe in the area of the country, it is more and more important for us, even as Christians, as we read the news on what is happening in our country over the last few years. Okay, we need accountability in every sector in this country. Back to what the gist of my today's sharing, which is about learning accountability from a king, which is King David. Just to refresh your memory again, this is like Sunday school. Okay, at the peak of his career, so-called, he has an illicit affair, which is adultery with Bathsheba, and he tried to cover up his sinful act, and that is really deceitfulness. And at the end, it climax, he plotted a murder by sending Uriah to the battlefront. So some people say that the sin of David has become so entrenched, and he has been blinded, and he is so insensitive, even to the point of committing a crime. But then the twist of the event is Nathan, okay, admonished him. We can read this in 2 Samuel, okay, and David suddenly realized his mistakes, his sinful nature, and he accepted the rebuke. And some people call this a royal accountability, not just a normal accountability, but a royal accountability. And this is when he wrote Psalm 51, and that's the reason why I played Psalm 51, the song earlier. He pleaded for mercy, forgiveness, yeah, and cleansing of his heart from God. Okay, if you have the chance, you can read again Psalms 51. It can really tell us the struggle and then the remorseful. Okay, he is really remorse, and yet he is so in a sense worried or afraid that when he said, "Do not let your spirit, okay, depart from me." Okay, Psalm 51, I think, is a good reminder for us. When the child died, meaning the child with Bathsheba, remember David accepted the judgment, and he moved on. If you read in 1 Chronicle chapter 3 verse 5, there are a couple of names, and he named one of his sons Nathan, which implies he was very grateful to the prophet Nathan for rescuing him. And last but not least, if you read again in 1 Chronicle chapter 3, David reigned in Jerusalem for 33 years. Okay, and he was forgiven. Now I list down all the key words, okay, during these events. What we can learn from here when we talk about accountability. First thing, King David, being a human just like us, even until today, we struggle with sin every day. And when he was in such sinful act, he was blinded. You can refer to 2 Samuel chapter 12 verse 5 to 6, when Nathan told him the story about a rich man stealing, okay, from a poor man, and immediately he said that the rich man should be punished, but he was blinded. Actually, Nathan was pointing to him. Thing we can learn from King David is all of us needed an oracle to point out our wrongdoing. Okay? Now Nathan is the oracle or prophet of God, and he was appointed at that time, okay, to be the voice of God in front of David. So in our life, we all need an oracle, men and women of God, to point out mistake. And the best thing is he has humility in accepting the rebuke. That is the key turning points. If he continue to ignore, because being king, he can anytime go and put Nathan to death, but he didn't. He accepted the rebuke, and in humility, okay, he turned around. What can we learn about Nathan? Nathan stopped David before he rolled off the cliff, before he committed further sin. And we must remember, Nathan is basically willing to stick out his neck. He's willing to lose his prime position when nobody dared. I believe at that point of time, everybody knew what was happening, but nobody dared to speak the truth. And Nathan dared to speak the truth, the hard truth, even though he knows being king, okay, he can anytime put Nathan to death. And he put friendship before truth. So these are the hard facts that we can learn from both characters when we talk about accountability. The food for thought today is, I believe each one of us, as I say, we are just like King David. We are struggle with sins every day, and we are accountable to God. On Thursday when we read, who do we accountable to? We are accountable to God. But we need to deal with our own blindness. We need people to speak the hard truth into our life, and we should be open to our Nathan. Okay, I do not know who is the Nathan for you. I remember a couple of years ago, I shared also in one of the meeting with pastor, there is a man of God who spoke hard truth into my life, and I accepted that because otherwise, I could be, heading into a direction which is irrecoverable. But we need to be sensitive, and we need to be open when a man or woman of God speak hard truth into our life. And the opposite is God who have assigned us to someone in our life at this point of time to be his or her Nathan. Over the last few days, I heard some people share, sometimes it's very difficult because of friendship, and a lot of gray area, pastor also said. But I believe that if God has brought somebody to our doorstep, and could be at that point of time, we could be their Nathan, because we can see what is wrong. But above all things, I believe what is said many times is relationship and trust matters. Relationship, because in Proverbs chapter 27 verse 6 say the wounds from a friend can be trusted. I believe if somebody has no deep relationship with any one of us, we wouldn't dare, because it will be seen as being judgmental and being critical. And Nathan, I believe in gentleness and yet without judgment, when he told the story to David about the rich man stealing from the poor man, he did it in a very gentle, because at the end he didn't judge. It is David himself that judged himself when he said that the rich man was in the wrong. So David judged himself. Having said that, I believe we are still on the journey on this world, that we are all sinners. And every day I pray that, even for myself, that we need God's grace to transform us daily. For many a times we have read that one day we are accountable and we are answerable to God when we see him face to face. Yeah. So my sharing is very simple. Like I say, that it's just from a simple story of King David. We can learn, yes, he made mistake, but yet he is willing to turn around, because ultimately he realized he is accountable to God, and he is willing not just to let go everything, and yet we know that he worshiped God wholeheartedly after that. Yeah. So that is the end of my sharing. Again, I just encouraged every one of us to read through Psalms 51 again, and you will be greatly encouraged by the Psalms written by King David.
Shih, before you off your thing, go back one slide. I think there's a slide error.
Sorry.
The slide before this, the last one, he put truth before friendship, not friendship before truth.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry. Thank you, Pastor.
Okay, thanks, Shih, for sharing. I think that's a good reminder that each of us, God can send a Nathan into our life, and we can be a Nathan to somebody else. I think that's important. Okay. The other thing that what Shih has brought up that I also wish to highlight is accountability in the way have two levels. Okay, there's what we call positional accountability because of your position. Okay, and that's slightly different from what I call relational accountability. Okay, I think for all of us, or for most of us, we rather have relational accountability rather than positional accountability. Okay, there's a vast difference because of my position. Okay, I tell do something no choice lah, like I said. Okay, because of position, your boss tells something you have to do, but we rather do it the relationship that's important. Okay. And also the other point that Shih brought up Yes, we are accountable to God, but like I shared also yesterday, because all of us are leaders in our own right, we are also accountable to the people that God has placed under us. Okay, we're also accountable for them. So I think that's the other level of accountability. So even in a family situation, the father is accountable as head of household for the family. Okay, and the church situation, church leaders, whatever position, ministry heads, there is a level of accountability that we need to be mindful of. So besides answering to God, you got answer for somebody's rightly or wrongly. Okay, I think that's also bear that in mind as well.